Shri Ganeshahaya Namo Namah. Greetings to everyone world over. Green morning, green afternoon, green evening, wherever you are world over. Hope post-pandemic you're taking care of your health, you're taking care of your wellness, your physical wellness, your mental wellness, your spiritual wellness, your economic wellness, and of course, your environmental wellness. All that is very, very important for all of us. Because when we have got positive mindset, we can take on any challenges, and that's what India has proved during the pandemic. And we have given a new shape, new vision to lots of things post-pandemic. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another very powerful evening. Today is 1618th webinar. During pandemic, we have done 1600 webinars every day. We have been doing 3 to 4 webinars, reaching across the globe, trying and linking up everybody, all our brothers and sisters, Indian diaspora, those have gone abroad in different countries, and each one of them, we are so indebted to them. They have been contributing so much. This particular one-week program has come as a part of 75th celebration, that is Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, when India is completing 75 years, entering into 76th year, and what all celebrations and jubilations and congratulations which are taking care of world over with all our brothers and sisters. A week back on 8th of August, we started this special program. And in that series, today on Sunday, on 14th of August, in the beautiful arena, we have got Dr. Ashok Saxena ji. He is a former professor and Dean Emeritus, Department of Mechanical Engineering, University of Arkansas, that is in United States. And if you see it, there is a Ozark Mountains in that particular area where this university comes. And they are very strong in architecture, agriculture, communication disorder, business school, creative writing, and besides that, many other disciplines, what they have got. So we extend a very hearty welcome to Professor Dr. Ashok Saxena ji. Let me share a couple of slides so that we set the context for the evening. We started this special program packaging 1 week back, that's on 8th of August, and Professor Jagdish Shetzer, Professor S.S. Patnaik ji, Monica Behl, Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajan, they all had come on the opening inaugural day. Next day, we had Dr. Preeti Sharaf Mehta. She joined us all the way from Chicago, and she also took on the journey, internationalization of Indian education. We had gone to Dr. K. Ganesh, Indian teachers and global students, and entrepreneurs perspective. That was on 10th of August. 11th, we had Dr. B.N. Setna, that is addressing the teacher shortage, the potential role of Indian teachers as a force in the world. That was the next day which we had taken. Yesterday, we had gone all the way to Canada, and we had preparing global teachers through the lens of Canada, where Surya Vijay Shastri Kotamarti ji, the gentleman who comes from the financial background, and he gave the complete vision of chartered accountant, company secretaries, financial services, what all is happening as a career and what teachers can do in Canada. And we had Mr. Vikas Malhotra, an expert and tourism analyst, who talked about tourism, hospitality, aviation, and service industry in Canada, what all is happening over there. Ladies and gentlemen, during pandemic, we all suffered a lot, but teachers, you are great warriors. We run short of the words from our chamber, International Chamber for Service Industry, which is a link and which is a triangle between non-resident Indians, corporate and the government interface, where we have been focusing during the pandemic on teachers and youth. Atmanirbhar Bharat, the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister of India. And how did we do 1600 webinars during the pandemic? It was through the concept of finishing school of service industry, which we brought in 1994, brick and mortar on ground in India, where more than 50,000 youth from less privileged families, border areas, far-flung areas, non-accessible areas, and more than 35,000 teachers have also been the part of journey. And the education and the skills have been altogether different. because music, humor, fun, dancing, happiness, passion, stimulation, storytelling, they were the part of the personality enhancement, communication skill, and creativity. Post pandemic, the finishing school has moved out of the brick and mortar physical walls, and now it is the digital arena where, through the digital way, it's an inspirational lab for every child and every teacher. And our chamber always deliberate on this, why education is not relevant to our day-to-day life from the time we get up in the morning until we go to sleep. Why not we should prepare our teachers for the global journey? If India has got a rich human resource which is getting empowered, enriched, skilled, and inspirational, why not we should focus on making education relevant and sending our teachers as a soft power that is abroad, making India Punah Vishwa Guru. So learning through nature, with nature, for nature, where water management, waste to resource management, climate change, carbon neutral, understanding cultural diversity, and understanding and respecting everybody on this planet, whosoever comes directly or indirectly in contact with us. Immersive learning experiences. This all is through inspirational lab of ours. Honorable Prime Minister gave the new education policy. That's on 29th of July 2020, which is going to be the game changer once it gets implemented in totality. The new budget, which was presented by Honorable Finance Minister of India, Shrimati Nirmala Sitharamanji, on 1st of February, gave the great push to education skills with the digital journey. And of course, tomorrow we are going to talk about digital university hub and spoke model and the new dimensions which should come for 2047, when India will be celebrating 100 years of its independence, and how NRI educators, how we can have a global podlock, confluence, and reservoir and cerebrums and everything coming together as a podlock. And we all work in the direction how India should shape itself in the next 25 years, so that through its human resource, through its teacher, educators, counselors, and motivators, world population is aging. We got to do the hand holding through Indian, the skilled educators who should go world over, and that's in the form of human services exports. As a special gesture, on this particular Independence Day, we are announcing our chamber is going to organize 2 weeks a special program for Northeast India, preparing global teachers. The entire program is coming digital way on the WhatsApp, is free of cost, no money to be charged from anybody. Any child who has completed B.Ed, or if they are in the final semester of B.Ed, they can be the part of this particular journey. We have given the mobile numbers down below. We have given the email also. Be a part of the journey. We would like to help the entire area, 8 beautiful states of Northeast part of India. Tomorrow, you would be meeting 15 Yodhas, preparing global teachers and preparing global career for Indian teachers. How do we work out? That is going to be tomorrow, where you have Indian as well as our Indians, those who have gone abroad, Indian diaspora, they'll be together celebrating 75 years of India's independence, and that would be with NRIs and educators. Tomorrow, we would also bring a special musical notes for you, why music should not be a part of education, how India is going to become Vishwaguru. Punah, we have to become Vishwaguru, and that is the way we are going to work on to Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. So, ladies and gentlemen, whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Let's come together. Let's prepare Indian educators for global journey. And join me in extending a very warm welcome to Dr. Ashok Saxena ji, who is joining us all the way from the United States. He is coming from Atlanta, and he is going to share his vision with us, preparing teachers for pedagogical challenges of the STEM education. So with these words, we extend a very warm welcome and a hearty welcome to Professor Ashok Saxena ji. It's a pleasure to have you with us over here. Thank you very much for sparing your valuable time. And thank you very much for being with us over here. We extend you a very warm welcome. Let's take on. And now the floor is yours. Audience is yours. The globe is yours. The world is yours. And we are yours. We would like to hear your valuable treasures and views, basically preparing Indian teachers and how to go by focusing on STEM education.
Well, namaskar, Gulshan ji, and thank you very much for the warm welcome and the opportunity to speak to your group. I also want to recognize the role that Professor Jagdish Sheth has played in introducing me to this group, as well as Vivek Natarajan, who has been in touch with me. In fact, one of the things I'd like to say is that you send Vivek an email, and within seconds, you get an answer. So the person doesn't take a break. I think is very dedicated, and the subject that I'm going to speak about is very close to my heart. But let me also bring greetings to my brothers and sisters in India on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the Indian independence. I'd like to add that it is a huge accomplishment. If you just look around the world, how many countries have been able to stay together with as much diversity as India represents, both in religion as well as in languages. So it goes to the credit of the Indian people that we are here to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Indian independence as one nation. So this is a big accomplishment. Now I want to share my screen so I can go on to the topic of today.
We can see your screen, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about preparing teachers for pedagogical challenges of STEM education. And currently, as Dr. Sharma pointed out, I'm a retired professor and Dean Emeritus from University of Arkansas. I also served for 18 years as a professor at Georgia Tech in the School of Material Science and Engineering. And I'm also chairing an I'm the executive chair for the 15th International Conference on Fracture in Atlanta to be held between June 11th and 16th. And I also run a company on the side, a small company on the side in Bristol, Virginia. So my diverse experience includes, I go back to my PhD, which was back in 1974. So you can do the math and realize that it's been 48 years. And I have 11 years in major industrial R&D centers, 18 years at Georgia Tech, 17 years at University of Arkansas. And I'm also very proud of my 2-year stint that I spent at Galgotias University in Greater Noida when it first started. And during that period that I spent in India, I was able to help India become a member of Washington Accord, which means that a degree in engineering from an Indian accredited institution is valued at par with a degree from any US accredited institution. This is a huge deal, and there are not very many countries that are members of Washington Accord, but as a result of India's efforts, we were able to get India into Washington Accord. I also introduced the outcomes-based education at Galgotias and other institutions in India. And for the past 4 years, as I said, I've been president of Wire Tough Cylinders in Virginia. My experience in education also includes a stint with the American Board of Engineering and Technology. This is the accrediting body that accredits degrees in the US universities. I worked as a program evaluator for 5 years for material science and engineering. Then I became a member of the Engineering Accreditation Commission, where I used to lead teams of evaluators to go visit other universities and look at their preparedness to become an accredited program. And then I also served as a board member for ABET between 2011 and 2016. I also have a involvement, I have a soft corner for India, obviously, because it gave me very good opportunities in education. And I was a founding member of the Indo-US Collaborative on Engineering Education. So it is that perspective that I'm going to bring to a few minutes of discussion about pedagogical challenges in STEM education. Um, and then I'm also aware of the need of teachers all over the world, and also the aspiration that India holds to be able to fulfill that need. So, if you look at some examples of what is modern India best known for, and we're talking about uh, modern India success stories that contribute to the betterment of India by substantially and visibly boosting the economy and providing direct and indirect career opportunities for its young people, and B, garnering recognition for their accomplishments in the world. Now, I've chosen three. I'm sure there are more than that. IT services and computer science is a very obvious one. And I have seen that whole thing grow over my professional career, where uh, computer professionals used to come to US to work in companies. And then now you look at the transformation that has brought, where that has led to some of them becoming CEOs of IBM and other similar organizations. And also, more importantly, the impact it has had on computer science education in India. It is one of the most valued education experience that students can have, and it is also very high in quality. Then my two other examples are cricket and movie industry. I'm not going to spend much time to them, but they meet the criteria that I first set out, substantially and visibly boosting the economy and providing direct and indirect career opportunities for its young people. Now, how has cricket provided career opportunities? You look in the field of broadcasting, you look at in the field of playing cricket. There are so many young uh, cricketers, aspiring cricketers, and India could possibly field three cricket teams that could very easily compete in the world stage. So I think it is a huge success story. And movie industry, I'm reminded of back in 1962 when I was just 13 years old. And my father was working with the UN in Nigeria. And we landed at the Lagos airport and were going home. And I see Indian movie music playing in the everyday stalls. And I was most recently in China, where people were asking me about Three Idiots and were engaging me in conversation about the movie. So these three are good examples. The question is, how can we emulate that success in a guest teacher program? There is a dearth of STEM teachers globally, even in advanced countries like the United States, very similar to what we have with the IT professionals. India, as Dr. Sharma also pointed out, has several strategic advantages to become the world's hub for fulfilling this need. And the benefits to India are providing meaningful global opportunities for its people, modernizing STEM education in its own public and private schools, ultimately drive innovation in STEM education to become a world leader in that field. So here's an, if you want to call it an industry, here's or opportunity. We can be the provider of STEM teachers all around the world. In fact, I just heard other day in the news here that there is a shortage of 50,000 teachers that is projected in the next 2 years in the United States alone. And most of that shortage is in the STEM fields. There are plenty of people available to teach the other subjects in the schools, but STEM teachers are very difficult to find simply because there are opportunities in industry and other places where they get lured to, and therefore very few are left to actually to teach STEM in high schools or even before high schools. So let me just briefly talk about the attributes of STEM education. First of all, it has to be interdisciplinary, and it has to be inspiring critical thinking skills. So STEM education is about students gaining knowledge of science, mathematics, engineering to address real world problems. Take, for example, if you're a physics teacher, for example, in high school, and you're trying to explain what surface tension or a capillary action is. You can say surface tension or a capillary action is a phenomenon in which the surface of a liquid, where the liquid is in contact with a gas, acts as a thin elastic sheet. This term is typically used only in the liquid surface in contact with a gas such as air. Now you can write that down on the blackboard and you would have lost about 75% of the students because they wouldn't be able to relate to this very formal definition. Let me play a simple YouTube, and I'm not going to play it in entirety, just maybe the first 3 minutes or so you can get an idea of how the same topic can be introduced in a much more meaningful way that would inspire and arouse curiosity among the young people.
There is no voice. There's no sound. Professor Saab. Professor Saab, there is no sound.
I'm sorry?
There is no sound.
There is no sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you close your presentation once, if you close your presentation once, if you could kindly close it, I'll just help you out. Just close it, sir.
All right. Stop sharing.
Stop sharing. So what I'll do, sir, I will come on the other presentation. I'll just open it. And what happens is that over there, we got to just work it out that another presentation, we can take it from the board and I switch on your, let's take it, your presentation only. And when we just take it over here and I will share. Yeah, it is clicked. I have clicked both and the sound should come. The sound should come. I would request you kindly check up at your end when you're sharing your PPT. Down below, there are two buttons. Down below, there are two buttons. It is called share sound and optimize for video clip. It is on the left hand side.
Oh.
In your PPT, down below on the left hand side, bottom, there are two buttons, share sound and optimize for video clip. So that both you have to tick blue. Once you do that, then the sound will come from your clip.
Okay, I see select a microphone, select a speaker.
Yes. Down below on the left-hand side, bottom left-hand side, just click both. There are two round circles.
Okay, I don't see those round circles. Audio settings.
I'll go over, I'll show you once again.
Okay.
If you come on your screen, share screen, the moment you put share screen, down below on the left-hand side,
I see.
bottom, it is written share sound and optimize. Those two, if you click, then the sound will come.
Okay, you can see my screen now, right?
Yes, I can see, and you can replay your video. Because the sound has to come now. Unfortunately, sound is not coming.
Can you see? Can you hear it?
Yeah, video we can see. Video we can see.
Okay. Well, let's
Okay.
let's not go into it.
Okay.
I don't think it's that important.
Sure.
The point I'm trying to make is that okay.
The video you were showing was how trees can be so tall.
Right. And it talks about the capillary action. So, and it tells you about how, if you just go through conventional theories,
okay,
you're going to reach to the conclusion that trees cannot be any taller than 10 meters. But then if you invoke surface tension and capillary action, you can essentially justify how trees can grow up to 100 meters. And why some trees are tall, why some trees are not so tall, depending on the size of the capillaries that are used to take water to the top. So the point that I'm trying to make is that if you have a real world example like that, and you explain the importance of surface tension and capillary action in the context of that example, you're much more likely to succeed with the students. The students are going to have a much clearer understanding as to why they should study surface tension and why should they know about the capillary action. So that's where the pedagogy comes. And it took me 30 seconds, literally, to find that example that was available because I said that I want an example that is at the intersection of biology and physics. And all I did was Google biology, physics, and height of trees, and out came this example. So
if you wish, sir, I have found your video on my YouTube. I can play it for you.
Okay, why don't you do that?
No, if you wish, sir.
Well, I think it would be useful. Just play the first 3 minutes or so.
Then you have to, sir, close the presentation of yours, sir. Then only I can share.
All right.
Because I just, meanwhile, when you were going on this, I was trying to locate where is that video? Where is that video? And I just found it. I said, if you want, I can play it for you. And that is Akash National. Okay. And here it goes. Just 4, 3, 2, and 1. And the ad gets over. And then we play it for you. Here I would be playing for you. And both the sounds are there. Share sound and optimize the video. And I go for the video. This is the one, sir.
Sometimes the simplest questions have the most amazing answers.
Okay.
Like, how can trees be so tall? Seem like it needs an answer. Trees just are tall. Some of them are over 100 meters.
You can hear
why
that,
should
sir?
there be a height limit?
Yes, I can.
I'll tell you why. Trees need to transport water from their roots up until their topmost branches in order to survive. And that is no trivial task. There is a limit to the height that water can be sucked up a tube. It's 10 meters. If you suck on a long vertical straw, the water will go no higher than 10 meters. At this point, there will be a perfect vacuum at the top of the straw, and the water will start to boil spontaneously. For a tree to raise water 100 meters, it would have to create a pressure difference of 10 atmospheres. How would trees do that? When I posed this conundrum, a lot of people said the answer is transpiration. And that's when water evaporates from the leaf, pulling up the water molecules behind it. Now that's clearly a mechanism a tree can use to create suction, but it doesn't help us overcome this 10-meter limit.
The lowest the pressure can go is a pure vacuum, which I imagine is not happening inside of tree leaves. Right?
Right, Hank. So you might suspect that a tree does not contain continuous straw-like tubes.
The tree effectively has valves in it, so you don't have a column of water.
This big tube, which you're saying needs to be filled with water, is actually made up of cells.
Although these are good speculations, they don't turn out to be correct. Scientists who study trees find that the xylem tubes that transport water do contain a continuous water column. So how else could the tree transport water from the roots to the leaves?
They don't suck. They don't use a vacuum.
Okay, so how do they do it?
Squeezing like a cow, like you're squeezing a cow udder all the way up. There's little tree muscles in there.
Yeah. Besides being a giant waste of energy, all of the cells that make up the xylem tubes are dead. What about osmotic pressure? If there is more solute in the roots than in the surrounding soil, water would be pushed up the tree. But some trees live in mangroves where the water is so salty that osmotic pressure actually acts in the other direction, so the tree needs additional pressure to suck water into the tree. Then it must be capillary action. The thinner the tube, the higher the water can climb. But the tubes in a tree are too wide. At 20 to 200 micrometers in diameter, water should rise less than a meter. So how do trees do it? Well, one of the assumptions we made is wrong.
The lowest the pressure can go is a pure vacuum. Pure vacuum. Pure vacuum.
In a gas, this is true. When you eliminate all of the gas molecules, the pressure is zero and you have a perfect vacuum. But in a liquid, you can go lower than zero pressure and actually get negative pressures. In a solid, we would think of this as tension. This means that the molecules are pulling on each other and their surroundings. As the water evaporates from the pores of the cell wall, they create immense negative pressures of minus 15 atmospheres in an average tree. Think about the air.
Thank you.
Okay. So I stopped here because, the objective here is not to explain surface tension, but the objective here is to give you an example of how you can make things interesting.
You can share your PPT, sir.
Okay, am I not there?
No, you are there, but your PPT, sir, you go on to the green share screen. Share screen. Down below, the button is there.
Yeah, just a minute.
Screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Share screen.
I have okay. I think I should be okay now. Share
screen.
Oh, it happens so easily. I don't see those buttons. I see my screen, and I see you. Let me. Oh.
Share screen. Green button is there right at the center. Just click on that. It will take you to your PPT. You can close it once and open it again. That can
I think that's probably what I will need to do.
Yes. You just close it once and open it again, because the aim was audience got benefited, and this was something new for me also, which you have given, how trees can be so tall. Oh my God. When I saw that it was so catchy, I thought, let me take a liberty to show on your behalf to the audience as long as they could hear the audio, because that brings a difference.
Yeah, I may have to, for some reason, I'm getting all kinds of screens, so I may have to sign off and then come back.
No worries. You can. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving ahead with Professor Ashok Saxena ji, and you just had a wonderful how trees can be so tall. And two beautiful words he has used for all of us: inspiring critical thinking, and why not to take on the real world problems. And that's what we were talking initially, that right from the time you get up in the morning until you go to sleep, whatever has to be done by us in our day-to-day life, if all that becomes a part of our education ecosystem, how beautiful the journey would be, and how stimulating and interesting the education and academics part would be. Because one of the questions my late friend, to whom we lost somewhere in month of February last year, he used to say, what is the purpose of education? Sir Ken Robinson. And quite a bit we have been sharing, talking, discussing, and that's the way. And today we are focusing on STEM. Another dimension which Professor Ashok Saxena ji has given to all of us: India can provide STEM teachers world over. And in US alone, he said that few days back, there was a saying that more than 50,000 teachers shortage is there in the USA alone. So I think India can fill lots of gaps, and we can do a lot onto that, and it can be taken care of. Let's prepare ourselves. Let's acquire all those skills which are globally needed. Let's pick up all those threads and let's take on whatever India can, because this is the time. And India can do wonders as far as, the teachers going abroad. If we want to regain our position, what we lost of the Vishwaguru, that can be taken care of by our teachers. So think about it, and I'm sure we can work in that particular direction. Professor Ashok Saxena ji would be soon joining us, and we will take on the vision forward. There he is, and let's take the journey forward. And I also wish to share with all of you that Indians, he has also given another important ingredient to us, where he made a mention, India known for IT, and then the computer sciences, then for the cricket, and then of course, besides the movies. We are the largest producer of movies world over, irrespective of the regional languages, Hindi language, but a lot of dubbing is being done nowadays and world over. He made a mention of the movie called Three Idiots also as well in between. You all must have enjoyed. What a wonderful piece of information it was when that movie was released, and it earned so much abroad. You can't imagine. Phenomenal, the benefit to the producer of that particular movie. I think it was a great hit and a grand hit. So a lot being discussed, a lot being taken care of. And we would, yes, that is the one, sir, you got to take on. And that is your presentation. And there it goes. And there we move on. And that is something, once again, we have got back with Professor Ashok Saxena ji. Could you kindly make it full?
Okay.
Kindly make it, yes, from here. Great.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry for the interruption and the technology mishaps. These things happen. But I thought a little bit about teacher attributes that we need to meet the need. One thing is, of course, having the domain knowledge. And I don't think that is ever going to be an issue with people who have come through the Indian education system. They will know the physics and the math and the engineering. But there are other things that are needed for professionals who can hit the ground running, which means that at a very short notice, there is a shortage of school teachers, for example, in a certain district in America, and they go to a registry where they can find somebody, and the person within a week has to come and be in the classrooms. So what are things we can do so they can hit the ground running? They must be aware of the objectives of STEM courses and the overall curriculum and the desired education outcomes with specific courses. Every course has its own desired outcome. And when you teach physics, you're supposed to be able to relate to people how some of the concepts of physics motivate mathematics, for example, or the other way around. So I think those kinds of connections are important. And then, of course, the in-depth knowledge, as we talked about, and also familiar with the educational technology tools and be able to make effective use of those tools. Not fumble like I did when it came to presenting this talk and switching between a YouTube versus the other. I hope that the younger people are a lot more familiar with technology so they can do that very seamlessly. And certainly communication skills are important, including being patient listeners, which is part of communication skill. If you don't know what the question is, how are you going to properly answer it? So be able to effectively collaborate with other teachers to provide a wholesome experience to students. In advanced countries, these things are very important. Awareness about the culture of the surrounding community and possess flexibility to quickly adapt to the local conditions. Let me give you an example. I was interviewing once for a job for the Dean of Engineering at a university. And people asked me, why don't you talk about yourself? And for 5 minutes. And the example I chose to talk about is how I grew up in India. Before coming out of 8th grade, I went through 12 schools in about 6 different states. So every July, the language used to change, the people used to change. And here, as a pre-teenager, I was forced to, in a position where I had to adapt to what the local cultures were. So being able, and that is what prepared me to come to America and get very quickly adapted to this country and the culture here. So these things are just as important. There are expectations from students and parents and their colleagues about outside the classroom interaction, which is very different from what you do in the classroom, advising science clubs, organizing student competitions and hands-on activities, leading field trips. So in fulfilling the expectations, be aware of their own limitations also. You know, if you're just coming out of India for the first time, you don't know how to drive a car, so don't volunteer to take students or drive them to field trips. You know, just ask for help, and there is plenty of people available to help you do your job. So these are the kinds of things that people need to be aware of in order to be effective in their STEM teaching careers. So for foreign teachers, if you look at K through 12 education is managed by school boards in the US, and it is done at the county levels or city levels, and they may have some unique requirements that vary from place to place. Obtaining visa, of course, is an obvious one. A vast number of teacher shortages in rural areas where local politics dominates the governance of school boards and how you're able to teach something. For example, you know, you have to forget for some time that you're an Indian. But what you have to do is stand in front of the classroom and you are their teacher and you have to command their respect as a teacher and talk about what you are there to do. Parents are deeply involved in setting expectations that teachers may have from students regarding homework. Teacher certification, you know, although it is not as stringent a requirement for STEM, but still very important. Family education rights and privacy, this is called FERPA laws, and teachers must always be aware of that. You know, there are certain things you can share with parents. There are certain other things you can share with students, but not with the parents. So being aware of all those things are extremely important. Neutralizing accents for improving communications. You know, the back office staff in India, for example, has done a wonderful job of that. You call a computer technician back in India, and they're very, very good in communicating and working with you and solving your problem. So all these challenges are there, but they're easily surmountable if they're made part of the planning process. So I won't read all these recommendations. I think this is maybe for Dr. Sharma and his colleagues, you know, but the main theme that I'm trying to put forward here is that to be a guest teacher, you must be qualified. And there has to be some agency in India that acts as a clearinghouse. And that agency doesn't just act as a clearinghouse, it also makes sure that the teachers are well prepared for their assignments. So there are a bunch of check marks that I have that one can go through in order to make sure that the teachers are armed with all the equipment that they need in order to be successful as STEM teachers. In the end, I would say that you know, there is knowledge, there is wisdom, and there is skill. And wisdom is about having knowledge, but more importantly, the ability to process the knowledge to make good decisions. This is my own saying. One without the other is not wisdom. So you can just have knowledge, but no ability to process it, or you can have lots of ability to process something, but you don't have the domain knowledge. If either of those are missing, it's not really wisdom. Education develops critical thinking skills along with knowledge, in other words, wisdom. So that is what education is about. Training, on the other hand, develops a skill to perform repeatable tasks and those tasks consistently. So my closing thoughts are, there is a worldwide shortage of good qualified school teachers. especially in STEM disciplines. The opportunity is there, and India is well positioned to capitalize on it. The challenges are more in quickly learning the local and cultural aspects rather than technical or skill-based. Focus on pilot programs, experimenting, and learning to do this right. The parental expectations from teachers is high, and delivering on those expectations is key to success. And if you have 3 good examples of STEM teachers coming from India and doing a great job, you can immediately expect that the demand for that group is just going to rise exponentially. And with that, I thank you all for listening to me, and I'm more than happy to take on questions or listen to what you have to say that I can benefit from. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Ashok Saxena ji. It was wonderful, wonderful to have you with us, and re-emphasizing that the STEM education and particularly the science-related subjects, how important they are. And that is something very meaningful, and world over, when there's a demand, we should produce in the factory where there is a demand. And that is something very important which we have to take on to. Sir, could we close the presentation so that we can come live with the audience in front? And it will again, yes, there it is. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, 3 days back, there was an interview of Mr. Shekhar Gupta, the print. And Shekhar Gupta was interviewing Mr. Ashley J. Tallis. Mr. Ashley J. Tallis. It is supporting the STEM education. All the teachers, educators, those are watching this particular program, irrespective what level you are, because I come from the armed forces background, and particularly the country's security and safety of every citizen is very, very important. The kind of a neighbors which we have got, and the kind of a nuclear arsenal which is getting piled up in the neighboring countries and in the Asian continent. Couple of things they have discussed. It's a worth watching YouTube interview. Shekhar Gupta interviewing Mr. Ashley J. Tallis, and they're talking about nuclear arsenal, and they're specifically talking about 2 hostile neighbors of India, and they're discussing over there what exactly is the present scenario and how India should shape itself. I'm supporting STEM education because when you are talking about science, when you're talking about the subjects related to science, teachers, you got to give, there were 2 key words given by Professor Ashok Saxena sir today: inspiring critical thinking, and why not we should take the real world problems. Those two are very aspiring, and they are so enriching, and to understand, we all have to understand, because it is so important. Education, at the same time, how it should be made practical, rewarding, stimulating. And nowadays, there are so many tools, digital tools are available. And Professor Saxena also made a mention that India is known for IT and computer sciences. So if we can do so much of exports from the software of the IT and ITES, why not we should work in the direction? And there are different kind of an exports. And when you talk about human exports and services exports of the STEM, you need not to physically move. You can sit over here and see the power of the digital. That Professor Saxena is sitting in Atlanta, and we are sitting right over here in city, beautiful Chandigarh. And we are connecting and we are talking to each other. Globally, we are taking the people, those are joining us from the world over for this particular program. And that is the power of the technology and the future technology. And there was something which was coming very sincerely and very innovatively when he has given the crux of the whole thing. If there is a world over shortage of these STEM teachers, why not India should step in, and we should prepare more and more people. Sir, few days back, I was just attending one principal's program, And there's some global competition. I do not know because I do not devote much of the time on the STEM, but to educate myself. And they told there was some global competition or something. And India was not doing that well into that competition with our children and our people participating over there. And give some tips as a closing remarks how somebody should become exemplary teacher for STEM. What some threads you can give it to us, like you have given a beautiful video, how the trees can be so tall and how do they get the water from the roots and right how it reaches and how do they go so tall. So to make our teachers tall, give us some tips and some suggestion as a closing remarks on the eve of the India's Independence Day, tomorrow's celebrations. Professor Ashok Saxena ji.
Yes, sir. I think to be a teacher, good teacher, you have to be able to communicate and relate to the students. You cannot say, a lot of times teachers come into the classroom and they want students to be impressed with their knowledge. They already are impressed with the knowledge. They know that you're a teacher, you know a bunch of things. And so what you have to do is to get into their minds and say, and talk at their level. That is the most important thing that you can do to effectively communicate. And the other thing is to make students comfortable so that they can ask questions. Saying things like, there is nothing like a dumb question. I'm not going to denigrate you just because you asked a question that I think somebody in your stage should know the answer to. So I think the genuineness of a teacher comes when they try to improve upon the students. A lot of times people talk about rankings in universities and colleges and schools. There are some schools and colleges that take the very best students and turn them into very good graduates. Have they added value? On the other hand, if you take somebody who comes from a very modest background, does not have that knowledge, and you turn them into very fruitful graduates, in my mind, you have added value to them. So you have these competitive exams. I myself went to IIT Kanpur, and back in 1965, when I took the exam, there were 125,000 students who took that exam, and only 1,000 could get into the 5 IITs at that time. So if IITs take those kinds of students and then turn them into good graduates, have they really added value? They've given them, these students are so good that you just leave them on their own and they will be good. But how do you understand the limitations of your classroom and your students and get down to the level where you communicate with them? And using the real world examples, as you pointed out, I would say even among the real world examples, I would add the word contemporary. Contemporary, things that people see on television on a daily basis. If you take one of those examples and try to use those examples to explain to somebody, they will understand. My wife's family comes from Benares, and I go there very often, and they run schools for village children. And they're not running school, they're basically just trying to make them successful in school. And so I looked at one of the textbooks, and here's somebody from Karondi Gaon near Benares, and you're teaching them English through what Queen Victoria was like, and in using examples of Prince Charles. How can you possibly relate to that kid who has trouble even relating to any of those characters and use them as an example? So all they can do is to basically memorize. So the pedagogy, the examples that you use, and in some cases, I would say even language that you use. Teaching a 3-year-old kid who has no understanding of English, trying to teach them something in English is very difficult. So those are the things that I think we need to understand. We have to indigenize the education system to get rid of the old shackles and basically rethink how we can make it more effective.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful, remarkable. Deep gratitudes and thanks to you for such a valuable and wonderful treasures and inputs to us. And ladies and gentlemen, before we close the session, like a good student, I have taken all the notes. Get to the minds of the students, get to their levels, make them comfortable. And genuineness of the teacher comes when they add value to the students, encourage them, empower them, understand their limitations. And then he also emphasized pedagogy and examples which you relate to. And finally, the level of language which you use. I think, sir, like a good student, I've taken all the notes of yours.
Well, and the best thing is that you've basically read it back to me much more effectively than I presented.
Thank you, sir. I'm so grateful. We are so indebted for your valuable time. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being with us today. And we wish you, your family, a happy Independence Day. To all the people, those are around you, convey our fragrance and best wishes to everyone. And we look forward to having another session, another day, as per your convenience in your future, helping the STEM teachers in the STEM education empowerment. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very
All right.
much for joining us.